So, if you monitor the biometrics of a professional athlete walking into like a hostile away stadium, say 50,000 opposing fans screaming in the sweltering heat of the nation's capital, you will see a very predictable biological response.
Oh, absolutely. Heart rate spike immediately.
Right. Cortisol just floods the system. The body prepares for a literal fight or flight scenario. It is a state of intense neurological chaos.
Hmm.
But what happens when you look at a player in that exact same pressure cooker and their biometrics seem to reflect a person sitting on their back porch just, reading a book?
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
And that is the defining narrative of the season right now. You have an athlete who isn't just surviving the pressure of this tournament, but he seems to be metabolizing it into this highly efficient, incredibly quiet form of dominance.
Totally. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to dig into exactly how Sanju Samson is currently reshaping the Chennai Super Kings.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover.
We really do. We are looking at a stack of recent reports and analyses that are just entirely dominated by the aftermath of Chennai's commanding 8-wicket victory over the Delhi Capitals.
A massive win.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the consensus across all these sources isn't just that Chennai won a cricket match. It is that Sanju Samson has fundamentally altered the tactical and psychological geometry of how this team operates.
Right. And to really grasp the magnitude of what the reports are calling a masterclass, we have to look at the mechanics of that specific victory.
Go for it.
So an 8-wicket win in T20 cricket is, well, it's a demolition. But achieving that at the Arun Jaitley Stadium against the Delhi Capitals adds an entirely different layer of complexity,
Because the conditions there are notoriously specific.
Exactly. It is a venue that historically demands frantic tactical adjustments. Like chasing down a target there usually forces a team to take massive high-variance risks. Yet, Chennai executed this chase with what the coverage universally describes as an absurd level of ease.
Yeah, that word easy is plastered across almost every single report we have. The stadium in Delhi was reportedly left stunned, and there is a specific sentiment echoing through the sports media right now, which is, if Sanju is on the field, it's easy for Chennai.
Which is a crazy thing to say about franchise cricket.
Exactly. Let's push past the hyperbole here. We are talking about top-tier, millimeter-perfect franchise cricket. Nothing is functionally easy.
No, never.
So when an athlete makes a high-stakes run chase look like a casual net session, what are we actually witnessing on a biomechanical level? Because it isn't just natural talent. It's like watching a master chess player who sees 10 moves ahead while everyone else is playing checkers. He operates at a level that makes the impossible look routine. It feels like he is experiencing time differently than the other 21 guys on the pitch.
What's fascinating here is that you hit the nail on the head with the concept of time. In high-velocity sports, when an analyst notes that a player makes it look easy, they're usually observing a phenomenon related to perceptual cognitive expertise.
Okay, perceptual cognitive expertise. Break that down for us.
Yeah, so it isn't that Samson possesses fast twitch muscles than anyone else. It is that his pattern recognition has become so highly optimized that he requires fewer visual cues to predict the trajectory of the ball.
Wait, really? So his brain is solving the equation of the delivery before the bowler even finishes their action?
Precisely. While a standard batsman is waiting for the ball to leave the hand to begin their footwork, Samson's brain has already processed the bowler's grip, their shoulder angle, and their run-up speed.
Wow.
Yeah, he initiates his movement microseconds earlier. That creates a phenomenon called temporal distortion.
Temporal distortion? That sounds like sci-fi.
It kind of is. To us watching on television, his movements look languid, almost lazy. But that smoothness is the direct result of having mathematically bought himself an extra fraction of a second. He isn't rushing because in his cognitive mapping of the game, he has an abundance of time.
That completely changes how we should look at this Delhi match. He isn't just out hitting the opposition, he is out processing them.
Exactly. He is neutralizing the hostility of the Arun Jaitley Stadium, not with aggression, but with absolute processing efficiency.
And it is incredibly obvious how that efficiency bleeds into the rest of the roster, right? I mean, if you are the non-striker and you are watching the guy at the other end dissect a complex run chase without his heart rate ever seeming to cross 90 beats per minute, it has to completely shift your own internal panic meter.
Oh, without a doubt. It alters the entire team's baseline anxiety. T20 cricket is inherently a game of induced panic.
Right.
The bowling side is constantly trying to force the batting side into making irrational decisions out of desperation for boundaries. but panic requires an echo chamber to thrive.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. An echo chamber.
Yeah, and when the central figure of your run chase refuses to participate in that panic, the echo chamber collapses. The required run rate might be climbing, but if Samson is at the crease radiating total control, well, the non-striker stops attempting low-percentage, high-risk shots.
Because they don't feel the need to overcompensate.
Right. The entire batting unit stabilizes because the anchor of the innings is emotionally bulletproof.
Which brings us to the tangible, structural implications of this victory, because radiating control is great for the highlight reels, but in franchise cricket, it only matters if it moves the needle on the league table.
And this win definitely did that.
It did. This 8-wicket demolition in the capital officially secured 10 points for the Chennai Super Kings.
And 10 points is the critical fulcrum of the IPL season. The tournament math is, frankly, highly unforgiving.
Yeah, it really is.
Usually, in a 14-game league stage, 16 points is the magic number for playoff qualification. So, hitting that 10-point threshold right at the mid-season pivot point completely changes the statistical pressure on a franchise.
Right, because before you hit 10 points, you are playing reactive cricket. You are constantly looking over your shoulder at the standings, obsessing over net run rate scenarios.
The absolute worst.
Yeah, and worrying about the results of matches you aren't even playing in.
Yes, exactly. Reaching 10 points shifts a team from a reactive posture to a proactive one. The math changes from we must win every single game or we are eliminated to we just need to execute our baseline game plan and we will likely advance.
It allows a team to dictate the terms of engagement rather than fighting for survival.
Yeah, and securing that position via a dominant win over a team like Delhi means Chennai is now holding the steering wheel of their own destiny.
But here's where we need to look critically at the narrative surrounding those 10 points.
Okay.
Because the sports reports we are analyzing aren't framing this as a collective team-wide achievement. The coverage is overwhelmingly phrasing it as Sanju Samson carrying Chennai on his shoulder.
I've seen those headlines.
They have positioned him as the singular key figure, the lone pillar keeping the franchise's playoff hopes actively alive. And honestly, I want to challenge this framing because, quite frankly, it sounds dangerous. We hear about a player carrying a team all the time. But is Samson carrying the team a sign of his ultimate brilliance, or a worrying sign that the rest of the Chennai squad is overly reliant on him to reach the playoffs?
That is a completely fair pushback.
Yeah.
What is the primary concern with that framing for you?
Well, if a team with the historical pedigree of the Chennai Super Kings is relying on a single player to quote-unquote carry them to the playoffs, isn't that a massive structural red flag?
You'd think so, yeah.
We celebrate this one-man army narrative in sports media constantly, but from a purely analytical standpoint, if your entire system requires a superhero to function, your system is fundamentally broken.
Right.
If Samson is carrying the team, doesn't that imply that the rest of the squad is a massive liability? Like, if he has one off day, does the entire playoff push just disintegrate?
It is a vital distinction to make, and it really gets to the heart of how modern T20 franchises are constructed. To understand why this isn't necessarily a red flag, we have to redefine what the media actually means when they say he is carrying the team.
Okay, redefine it how?
They aren't saying he is the only one scoring runs or taking wickets. They are saying he is absorbing the cognitive and tactical load of the highest pressure situations. In a highly optimized system, you actually want a singular player absorbing that load.
Why is that?
Because it allows the rest of your roster to specialize.
Ah, I see. So you were saying he acts as a pressure shield for the specialists?
Precisely. Think of a T20 lineup as an investment portfolio.
Okay, I like this.
You have high variance, high risk assets, right? The power hitters who might score 30 runs off 10 balls or get out for a duck. In order for those high variance players to execute their roles without fear, they need a guaranteed blue chip asset anchoring the portfolio.
And Samson is the blue chip asset.
Yes. When Samson carries the team, he is providing that guarantee. He's taking on the role of the structural load bearer.
Okay, let's unpack this further, because that implies the rest of the team isn't underperforming. They're just playing a different game entirely because he gives them the freedom to do so.
That is exactly the dynamic. If the rest of the Chennai lineup had to constantly worry about stabilizing the innings, their strike rates would plummet. They would play conservative cricket.
They'd be playing not to lose instead of playing to win.
Exactly. By shouldering the responsibility of the run chase in a place like Delhi, Samson allows the role players to swing freely. Now, Over-reliance is always a statistical risk, of course.
Sure.
But there's a massive difference between a team that collapses because they lack talent and a team that is deliberately built around an elite central pillar who thrives under the weight of playoff expectations. Most players fracture when they realize they are the sole load bearer. Samson is uniquely expanding to bear it.
That perfectly bridges the gap between his physical execution and his psychological state. Because you cannot be that structural load bearer unless your mind and your body are entirely synchronized.
No, you really can't.
And that is exactly what the analysts are pointing to right now. The sources are unanimous in declaring that Sanju Samson is currently operating at the absolute peak of his career.
And in the lexicon of sports analysis, declaring someone is at their peak is a highly specific claim.
Right. It isn't thrown around lightly.
No, it doesn't just mean they're in good form. A peak is the rare, fleeting convergence where an athlete's physical prime perfectly intersects with their tactical maturity.
Yes, it's that window where your body still has all of its explosive power, but your brain finally has a complete encyclopedic library of every possible game situation. You aren't just reacting on instinct anymore. You are reacting on deep, accumulated wisdom.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is that exact accumulation of wisdom that brings us to the most fascinating aspect of his current season.
Okay, where are we going with this?
Well, because this peak isn't just manifesting in his batting average, it is manifesting in a highly specific, deeply cultural form of leadership that has completely captivated the fan base and the media alike.
Oh, you were talking about the nickname.
I am.
The sports reports are literally flooded with it right now.
Yeah.
Analysts, commentators, fans, they're all affectionately referring to him as Chetan.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Malayalam, Chetan directly translates to older brother. The headlines after the Delhi match were literally declaring Chetan gets CSK to 10 and calling the victory Chetan's guarantee. It is an incredibly endearing term, but it also reveals a massive shift in how leadership is perceived in this sport.
This raises an important question with the sociology of a professional locker room. Think about the standard archetypes of leadership we usually see in franchise sports.
Like the fiery captain type.
Yeah, exactly. You have the boss, the general, the king. Every single one of those titles implies a strict hierarchy. They imply distance, authority, and often fear.
Because a boss dictates terms, a general commands from above.
Right. But an older brother, that is a completely different sociological dynamic.
It implies a horizontal relationship rather than a vertical one. An older brother is in the trenches with you. Like if you make a mistake, you don't hide it from your older brother in fear of being fired or dropped from the team.
No, you go to him so he can help you fix it.
Exactly.
And that completely alters the neurochemistry of the dressing room. We talked earlier about adrenaline and cortisol. Traditional alpha-aggressive captaincy styles the leaders who yell, who constantly scowl at mistakes, who radiate nervous energy. They keep the team in a state of high cortisol.
And high cortisol destroys fine motor skills, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes players tense. It makes them second-guess their instincts.
So, by adopting this Chetan persona, he is actively suppressing the team's stress response.
Yes, he is providing profound emotional stability. By framing his leadership as Chetan's guarantee, the analysts are highlighting a psychological safety net. He isn't just an elite athlete scoring runs. He is the reliable, comforting presence that makes the rest of the squad feel safe enough to execute their skills.
Wow, that's huge.
In the hyper-volatile environment of the IPL, where a single bad over can literally ruin a season, having a leader who radiates the calm, protective assurance of an older brother provides a massive, tangible, competitive edge.
So what does this all mean? When you layer all of these elements together, you get a completely unconventional blueprint for franchise dominance.
You really do.
We are conditioned by decades of sports media to believe that winning requires a firebrand leader. We expect the captain to be the most aggressive guy on the field, constantly in the umpire's face, treating every single match like a literal war.
The prevailing wisdom has always been that fire must be met with fire. But the modern IPL is already a furnace. The media scrutiny, the travel schedule, the relentless pressure from the fan bases the players are already burning. They do not need a leader who throws more gasoline on that fire.
They need the water.
Exactly.
And that is exactly what Samson is providing. He is proving that empathetic, stable, familiar leadership can be just as ruthless on the scoreboard as the traditional hyper-aggressive approach. He is dismantling teams like the Delhi Capitals, not by intimidating his own players into performing, but by offering them absolute trust and psychological safety.
It is a remarkable evolution, and it perfectly encapsulates why this specific victory in Delhi resonated so deeply across the cricket world. It wasn't just a display of hitting, it was a validation of an entire leadership philosophy.
When you step back and look at the entirety of what we have unpacked from these sources, a very clear narrative arc emerges. We started with the tactical realities of the Arun Jaitley Stadium, looking at how a team navigates the immense pressure of an away run chase. We saw how Sanju Samson utilized perceptual cognitive expertise to slow the game down, delivering a masterclass that secured an 8-wicket victory. That victory pushed Chennai to the critical 10-point threshold, allowing them to control their own destiny in the playoff race.
And driving that push is a player who has redefined what it means to carry a franchise. He isn't a bottleneck restricting the team. He is a structural load bearer who absorbs the pressure so his teammates can thrive.
Yeah.
He has perfectly synchronized his physical peak with a profound emotional maturity, evolving into the Chetan of the team, the older brother, who guarantees stability in a wildly unstable environment.
It is a rare thing to witness an athlete perfectly align their physical capabilities with the exact psychological temperament required to lead a massive institution.
It really is.
You are watching a real-time clinic on how to absorb the chaotic, crushing expectations of millions of people and metabolize it into calm, effortless execution. It is a lesson in pressure management and empathetic leadership that extends far beyond the boundary ropes of a cricket stadium.
It forces you to rethink the fundamental mechanics of how high-performing groups are supposed to operate under stress.
Exactly. Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with. As you process the magnitude of Samson's current run, we spend so much time analyzing how a massive, historically dominant sports franchise shapes the players who wear its jersey. But when an athlete reaches this rare, singular level of dominance, when they become the tactical load bearer and the absolute emotional anchor for the entire organization, does the team shape the player's legacy, or does a player like Sanju Samson permanently rewrite the identity of the team? Keep digging deeper.